Hi, everybody. It is Thursday, and it is the real life edition, Facebook Live. And so I'm experimenting with different places in my room. I'd like to build a set at this point. So the lighting where I was last night was just horrible. So we're just experimenting around a little bit here, but kind of like my schedule. It's been an incredible week. Gotta love January when everybody decides that now their goals are important. Okay, hopefully we don't have to try this again. Gotta love it when the Wi-Fi isn't working as well. But anyway, I'm in the middle of switching phones, so hopefully at some point, hi Eric, that hopefully we can get this straight so I don't have this problem of my phone keep, hey, you got to reconnect. So it's a really interesting topic this evening. I pick my topics because a lot of times there are things that I feel I need to talk about, whether it's for me or, maybe it's just something that's on my heart because either I'm struggling with it. And honestly, if I'm struggling with it, there's got to be other people that struggle with it. I had one of my good friends tell me one day, she goes, Melissa, you always look like you have it all together. And I'm not going to lie, I don't. I struggle with a lot of things. I just don't tend to splash it all over Facebook. People talk about that there's 3 things you shouldn't talk about and share with people on social media. And when we don't, it's important that we want to support people and we want to work with them and let them know that we love them. But we don't always need to know all the deep down details, especially when it involves family or finances or relationships. Some of that's private and important that, and not everybody needs to know. And so I don't necessarily share my deepest, darkest secrets on here, but I do like to share some of the most interesting and difficult things that I deal with, only because I want people to know that I'm real. And I feel like, if I struggle with this, maybe somebody else does. Hence the reason I really enjoy having guests on here, especially if they're talking about a topic that I might not have a lot of experience with, but I know that there are other people who do, because I really believe that we are all put on this earth to support each other, and be kind to each other and help each other get along, and learn to be happy. That's our purpose here in this world. So if I can just bring a smile to your face, or at least a little bit of help, and help you know that you are normal, you are loved, and that there's other people who struggle with the same things that you do, I think that's super important to let people know. So, Wednesday night is kind of my health and fitness option, where we talk a lot about things that people have questions when it comes to health and fitness. This is more of how to deal with really life and the life struggles, because those 2 things are intertwined. It's holistic. You can't successfully work with your physical health unless you definitely look at and support and fix, if you will, your mental health. Hey, Olivia. A lot of people popping on tonight. So tonight we're talking about that your toughest enemy might be you. And what I mean by that, I don't mean anything completely derogatory, but if you're like me, a lot of times we self-sabotage. And because this time of year, we're talking about health goals and New Year's resolutions, which of course, you know how I feel about that word. I don't like New Year's resolutions. I love goals and I love having a vision, but I think that it's something that we need to work on year round. And I really do feel like we need to address multiple areas of our life. It shouldn't just be health, and it shouldn't just be finances. I have specific goals of myself, even including things like self-confidence and self-esteem. That I'm working on. So I actually have addressed multiple avenues of things that I'm working at. I do a vision board every year. I'm working on it. There's some pretty amazing things. And actually, I don't mind sharing that once I'm done with it. I'll actually do a Facebook Live, probably a real life edition on that, so that you can see what my goals are, because part of having goals is the accountability that you have with it. But tonight, I really want to focus on this. I grew up going to church, and one of the things that we would do, I would teach Sunday school and give talks, if you will. And one of the things that I found is a lot of times the subjects that I needed to speak on or teach about really had a lot to do with something that maybe I needed to learn at the time. And so hopefully I don't get emotional, because I really don't like being emotional publicly. To me, that is a huge, scary thing. But this is something that I deal with on a regular basis. And that is, again, self-sabotage, and really fighting our own success because maybe fear of failure or fear of success. So Monica, you're totally welcome. I appreciate that you're on here, girl. And by the way, good seeing you yesterday. I know it was just in passing. But so let's talk about that. One of the things, I do take notes, and it's easier for me to put my thoughts down beforehand so that I can make sure that I cover the things I want to talk about. The first thing I usually do is a little bit of confessions, again, so that you know that I have problems too. I know that a lot of times that I do self-sabotage because I really struggle with deserve level. It's a self-imposed sense of inadequacy. I'm 43, well, I'll be 43 years old here in a few days. And even now, with a lot of life experience, and I'm much more self-confident than I used to be, I actually have learned how to have self-esteem, which has been a struggle most of my life. But I do really still struggle with a little bit of guilt, and that I feel like I don't do enough in all the areas of my life, whether that is as a wife, as a mother, as a business owner. As a trainer and a health and wellness coach, I love my people. And to me, one of the biggest things that scares me is that I will fail my people. Because I care. I want them to be successful. And so that is a struggle for me. I want to give them my very best. And I feel when I don't do that, not only am I failing them, I'm failing myself and my family. And I know that that's to some degree extremely unrealistic, but it's true. It's something that I really deal with. So really quickly, I want to talk about why most of us self-sabotage. And I think to a certain degree, we all do it. Some of us just more than others. And so I got some of this information from Psychology Today, a really great website that they talk about well, obviously all kinds of psychology, but this was very specific to self-sabotage and why we do this. And the reason why I call this topic tonight, why you are your own toughest enemy, because I feel like sometimes you can have all the skill, all the talent, all the resources available to you, or to me, and we still get to the point where we can't reach our goals and dreams because we choose, and it's not always conscious. Sometimes it's very, very behind the scenes and we don't even realize that we're doing it. But it happens a lot. So the first one is the first three I really related to. The first reason that a lot of us do self-sabotage or cause issues when we start to either see success or get to a point where we're going to see success. The number one is self-worth. Our deserve level might not be there. So sometimes it's, we feel like, okay, well, I don't deserve to be successful. I don't deserve to succeed. And if we, like I said, I'm going to read my notes here. If we start to hit some victories and some accomplishments, because we feel like we're flawed and we don't deserve that we start to sabotage ourselves. Now, ways that we might sabotage, like I said, a lot of times I think that it's very subconscious. We don't actually see that. But procrastination, that's huge. We put things off because again, whether it's scary. And some of this is going to come down to, I know it sounds ridiculous when we talk about it, but some of it's comfort level. It's almost easier to deal with the chaos and the craziness, but yet the expectation and there's a comfort level of knowing that we're not going to make it versus feeling like we're spinning out of control. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. But deserve level is huge. It feels bad to fail, but sometimes it feels worse to succeed because we don't feel like we deserve it. And I think I do that to myself immensely, quite frequently, actually. So something that I'm working on, so we get to the point where we're doing so well, we're reaching our goals, we're actually starting to see success, and then we go and we pull the plug. So that's a big one. And I don't know if that is more a predominantly woman issue, if we tend to do that or if men do that as well. I don't know. That would be an interesting feedback. If you are a guy and you feel like you do that as well and you have that deserve level issue, I'd be interested in knowing that. When I first started college, I actually started as a psychology major. And I eventually switched to education just because I didn't want to have to get a master's degree or a PhD in order to actually do something with it. But I still find the science of the mind extremely interesting because a lot of times it doesn't follow common sense. And so it's interesting to see how how psychology and how our minds play into what we do. The second reason why we tend to self-sabotage is control. It feels better to control your failure than for the possibility of something blindsiding you and taking you by surprise. So, which I get. I am a control freak. I know that happens. And so I tend to do that. It feels better to control the failure than it does to spin out of control, even when it comes to success and the things that we really, truly want. Like I said, it just seems like common sense against that. But, again, we're human and we're flawed, and not everything that we do makes sense. So number 3, and this is a big one for me, perceived fraudulence. And what I mean by that is sometimes, and I do this, I already know I do this. A really, really good friend of mine and I had a really good talk on the plane ride home from my last competition. And we talked about how there are times where everybody looks at me as the expert, which I hope I am. I do a lot of research. I do a lot of education. And I know that I don't know everything, but sometimes I feel like, somebody who knows more than me is going to come up to me and be like, you know what? You don't even know what the hell you're talking about. You're crazy. Stop telling people what to do. You don't know what you're talking about. And it scares me to death. Because all I want is the respect of, I have done a lot of research. I have done a lot of education, and I hope that I'm sending people the right direction. That is my goal. I want to empower people and make a difference in their lives. So it scares me a little bit that, somebody might come up to me and say, you know what, you're fake. You have no idea what you're talking about. And that scares me. And I know that I sabotage myself because of that. So I did really relate to those first 3 topics that I found on Psychology Today. I think we all, to some degree can relate to some of this. But also, sometimes it becomes a handy scapegoat. If we feel like we didn't do our best or we didn't get where we want to go, we can blame it on the situation for some odd reason. Blame the action that's happened. Also, a lot of us like, again, the familiarity of the chaos and things going wrong over the unforeseen or what you don't know is going to actually happen. It's very strangely reassuring when you're used to feeling maybe like the victim or overlooked and to be honest, I get very, very frustrated. There's a lot of things that have happened in the last few years where I feel like I feel totally disrespected. And even by people who I really admire and put a lot of trust and, I really value their opinion. And when they've either wronged me or really shown me some disrespect, it's so frustrating. But sometimes we like that. We prefer the familiarity of that over finding a way to progress past that. Now, I personally like to use that as my fire. You know what? I get mad, I get angry, I kick things around for a while, and then my thought process is, well, hell, I'm going to show you. I'm going to do it despite you because I'm not going to let you keep me down. So fortunately, I don't always tend to let that be a self-sabotage. However, a lot of us do. One of my favorite quotes is, you will remain the same until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change. So people stay in horrible relationships. People continue to eat garbage and have illnesses and feel like crap, but they'd rather be that way than embark on a new journey because you know what? It's more painful to start something new, right? As humans, we don't like change. We prefer a schedule. We prefer familiarity, and to start on something new is scary and uncomfortable, and we don't like comfort or uncomfortable situations as humans. So that can happen. We don't like the unknown. And for some, again, I don't find that I really do this, but for some, they might self-sabotage out of sheer boredom. They like to push other people's buttons or push their own buttons, pick fights. I know people like this. I really do. And I find it weird because I don't like drama. So I don't understand why, but they actually prefer the familiarity of chaos, and the instability, which, I guess if your life is always like that, it is scary to find stability or success or something amazing and new. So those are some pretty major reasons why we might choose to sabotage our own success, to not move forward, to not progress. And it's a personal choice, because nobody else can change that for you. You have to make that decision on your own. And Olivia says she knows people like that. I think we all do. I think that, you know, even if you don't relate personally to one of those situations, I think that we all know somebody. We're just going, I don't get it. Like, I don't get why they do that, what they do. I know some narcissists that I'm just going, Lordy, Lordy. All right. So here's some tips. These tips come from, you know, and I think that if we all knew all the answers, we could solve it ourselves, which we don't. No, you have to try some different things. And these tips come from the Huffington Post. And the first one is, I know we all do this. We have to be very conscious of self-judgment. We are our own worst critic. We all are. I am floored, even for me, the things that I tell myself that I would not say to my children, because I love them very much. But yet the person that I should love the most, I treat very badly. I mean, come on, that's abuse, right? That's self-abuse. So whether, you know, we talked a little bit about ways that we actually self-sabotage. We talked about procrastination, comfort eating. Yep, I know I've done that in the past. You know, for most of my life, I had a very unhealthy relationship with food. A lot of times that was a way to, it's kind of like a drug. For a brief moment, I feel better, but then of course we go through that guilt cycle. And for some people, they self-medicate, you know, alcohol, drugs, whatever. There are some ways that we literally take ourselves down by just applying the wrong tool. So we have to be careful, be conscious and careful of our self-judgments and what we tell ourselves in our heads. You know, you have to respect yourself, and you have to consciously think about it, because a lot of times those old tapes just keep playing, and if you don't stop them, they take over your life. The next one is to shift your definition of your worth from outcomes to efforts. Okay, so what that means is, instead of, okay, well, now I'm just devastated because I haven't dropped 20 pounds, look more at, well, did you go to the gym? You know, celebrate the fact that you did the work that it takes to get where you want to go. And I talk about this when it comes to, I've done some things on New Year's resolutions here. And one of the things I said is stop focusing on the results, focus on the efforts, set your goals based on that. Because a lot of times you can't necessarily control the results if you don't know what all the variables are. But if you do focus on what it takes to get there and trust the process, at least you're making a step forward versus giving up when you don't see those results happen. Because again, there might be a variable you don't know about, right? See mistakes and failures as stepping stones to success instead of definitions of self-worth. So we are all going to fall down. We are all going to fail. You can ask anyone at the top or is in a position where you would like to be, if they got there by just, you know, hey, it was easy. I'm just special, so I got here. Or I had all the skills and talent, so I didn't fail. No one at the top. No one has gotten there without a series of mistakes and failures. And so you have to be okay with that. That is part of the process. And yes, it is uncomfortable and we hate it. And not gonna lie, I have multiple meltdowns over the smallest things when I feel like I'm not getting where I want to go. But those mistakes are necessary because I've learned from them. Also, be kind and compassionate towards your own feelings. It's okay to own your feelings. When something doesn't happen correctly, Olivia says you fall down several times. You can fall down 1,000 times. It is not how, you've heard this, it's not how often you fall down. It's how often you get back up. Ask an MMA fighter. They get knocked down all the time, right? Boxers. But anything in life is that way. So, you know, if you're compassionate towards your own feeling, own those feelings. If you fail, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be frustrated. Just don't let it stop you. Don't let that keep you from getting where you want to go. And Sarah Howell just popped on. Dude, I just talked about you. Dude, I just said MMA fighter. I know she has a fight coming up, so I'm totally excited. Is it being televised? I know one of them was, and I actually got to watch that, but I know she's going to Boise, and so I'm super excited for her. Kind of fun when you know people and you get to cheer for them. Also, another tip that they had was to make decisions. If it's based on pleasing someone, you're making the wrong choice. If it's someone's opinion, who cares? They don't have to be you. They don't have to live in your life. Why make a choice based on what they think versus what you think and what your success is? So be okay if that person decides not to be part of your life for whatever reason. because their opinion is not as important as your opinion of yourself. So those are some really great tips. Not gonna lie, it's not easy to change. It's not easy to get up and keep going, especially when you feel like it is an extreme failure or you know, I said to my husband the other day, I always feel like I take 5 steps, you know, 1 step forward and then 5 steps backwards. I just don't ever feel like I am progressing in the direction that I want to go. And sometimes it looks like that, you know, on the surface, but things are somewhere going the direction that you want to, and it might not be the right thing for you. What you think is the best for you. I just told somebody, God's delay is not God's denial. Just because you didn't get the one thing doesn't mean that you're not going to reach your goal or get where you want to go. It just might be a different pathway that gets you there. So this was a really, you know, a tough one for me to talk about, because I've been really extremely frustrated in the past few weeks, just with, you know, my schedule, and with the fact that I'm searching for a little bit for direction and balance, especially this time of year. This is my busy season. And I turned right around from a lot of crazy stuff going on in our lives to even more crazy stuff going on in our lives. I don't know how I can get away from that. And really struggling to even take downtime because of everything that's going on. And so I think when I get to that point where I'm overwhelmed and I'm overburdened and I overschedule myself, we all know how that feels, right? I think I feel everything a lot more intensely than I would if I'm taking that healthy time for myself. And so that is something that I am working on this year. That is one of my goals. Again, I don't do New Year's resolutions. I make vision boards and I work on goals that get me where I want to go overall. And I do remember what is my priority in my life. Of course, number one, my family. And, you know, God is part of my life. I believe He put me here for a purpose, and I'm working towards that. So hopefully I'll get where I want to go. Again, it might not be in my time, it might be His. But you know what? If I can help somebody else feel good about where they're trying to go, we all have those days. So hopefully that helps you tonight. Have an incredible weekend, you guys. Happy birthday to me. I'm just going to say it. My birthday's Tuesday. So if y'all want to say happy birthday, I'm okay with that too. January is a horrible month to have a birthday. I'm just not going to lie, because it's miserable outside. It's cold. I don't want to go outside. I don't want to go anywhere. And of course the holidays are all over and it's been crazy. I'd rather just kind of sleep for a month. But that's okay. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna have a great weekend. So have an incredible night, you guys. I really truly love you all. I want you to be successful. I hope that you can feel the love and the sincerity that I have. This is not fake. I really want you to be successful in whatever your goals are. I love people. So have an incredible weekend. It's almost here, and we'll see you next week, guys. Have a good night.